I hate duck ass fans. Alright, so I'm gonna be real for a minute. I'm gonna just be straight to the point. This is the biggest thing that I hate about boxing. It's hands down my biggest pet peeve. It's hands down the thing that I hate the most about boxing. And the more, and like when I'm in this media space where I'm making this shit or making these videos, it's a thing that I do see the most now that I'm in like Facebook groups and stuff and things like that. And is these duck ass fans. Like, I get it. I get it that I get when a fighter ducks another fighter. I get when a fighter's promoter or fighter's manager ducks another fighter. It could be for a multitude of reasons. It could be because they want to make an in-house fight and keep all the money. It could be because they think that the guy could possibly lose and they don't want him to lose his career trajectory. It could be because they see it, their matchmakers see it as a mismatch, or it could just be because there's not a big buzz around the other guy. So there's not a huge financial gain that they can get from making the fight, or there's a whole bunch of other different variables to stop the fight that may not be as financially rewarding. So I understand it. So I understand when someone like Eddie Hearns looks at someone like Deontay Wilder and he says, Deontay Wilder hasn't fought anybody. Why should he fight Anthony Joshua? And I understand when someone like Errol Spence Jr. says something like, you know, Keith Thurman ducked me, so I'll never fight him. I get it. You know, I really do. And I can understand when someone like Teofimo Lopez, who wanted to be undisputed, and all these Devin Haney fans are saying that he's not undisputed, would say, I'm not fucking fighting Devin Haney. He's an email champion. He's not a real champion. I don't believe he's a real champion. I get that. I really do. I understand the concept behind it. But what I don't fucking get is all the fans that regurgitate that bullshit. If you're a real boxing fan, I'm talking about a real boxing fan, you are going to want the best to fight the best. It does not fucking matter how much money they're going to make, because you're not fucking getting paid. You're not getting paid off of them. You're not their promoter. So why are you trying to downplay great fights in order to not see your guy lose, or to regurgitate something that these slimy ass promoters paid? Because these slimy ass promoters, whether it's Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, Leonard Ellaby, and these people who are in the business of boxing, that's what they are. They're businessmen. They're supposed to be slimy. They're not looking out for what's best for the sport. They're looking out what's best for themselves. But when you repeat that bullshit, you're part of the problem too. Like, it's kind of like the David Benavidez versus Canelo Alvarez thing. I have nothing wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with Canelo Alvarez. In fact, I think that he gets too much shit, because to say that he didn't fight Jamel Charlo or he didn't fight Demetrius Andrade, it is true. But when he went up there and he fought Dimitri Bivol, he very much did challenge himself. So I'm not going to just like shit on him too much. But with the David Benavidez thing, right, when he says shit like, I don't fight Mexican fighters, and who has David Benavidez fought? I get that. Maybe he doesn't want to fight David Benavidez. Maybe because of the Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight, where they really didn't have any reason to make that fight other than he wanted to make some money. And there's a whole bunch of people who loved Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. and who hated Oscar De La Hoya. I get that they didn't want to see Oscar De La Hoya's protege beat up Julio Cesar Chavez's son. So that's why they fucking hated him for it. I really do. But that doesn't mean he shouldn't fight all Mexican fighters, even though I can kind of understand it. I can understand it a little bit. But as a boxing fan, if whether you're Mexican or not, you shouldn't be repeating that bullshit. You should never look at David Benavidez and say David Benavidez shouldn't fight Canelo Alvarez, when David Benavidez is clearly the biggest threat to Canelo Alvarez at 168. You're a bum ass fan. You're ruining the sport when you do stuff like that. It doesn't matter that you don't want to see him fight Mexicans, or you don't want to see him lose, or you think that David Benavidez doesn't deserve the fight. Who cares? Who cares? He's clearly the best. Who's better at 168 than Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez? At 168, Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez are like Errol Spence Jr. and Bud Crawford. They are the two best fighters at that weight class. So for so many people to downplay that fight when one guy is undisputed and say that they should not fight, it's ridiculous. I don't care that he's had weight issues in the past. I don't care that he had substance abuse issues in the past. Tyson Fury had substance abuse issues in the past. He failed drug tests, but I still wanted him to fight Deontay Wilder, and Deontay Wilder is one of my favorite fighters. Even if they're going to lose, even if he was going to lose. After that first fight, that second fight, I was so nervous because I knew that there was a big chance that Deontay Wilder could lose. But I never once said that Tyson Fury didn't deserve to fight. The Tyson Fury-Deontay Wilder fight shouldn't happen just because there was a huge chance that my guy would lose. And then in that third fight, there was still a huge chance that he could lose. I was on the edge of my seat. It was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until Deontay Wilder inevitably gassed out, and Tyson Fury, with his superior boxing skills and his superior training that he had at the time, he beat Deontay Wilder, and it's okay. It's okay that your guy lost. I would never say that. Who the fuck is Tyson Fury? Nobody knows him. He's an awful fighter. He shouldn't fight him. That's ridiculous, because they're two of the best fighters in the division. And I want to see Deontay Wilder fight Andy Ruiz. I want to see Joe Joyce fight Anthony Joshua. Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury is the fight that I want to see the most, because I want to see which of them is the best. I want to see who's the best. I want to see the best fight the best. I don't fucking care that Tyson Fury's way bigger than Alexander Usyk. I don't fucking care that Alexander Usyk isn't as big of a name as Derek Chisora or Anthony Joshua. I don't fucking care that he might not make a fucking shit ton of money. He's making more money than I or you or anybody else will ever see in our fucking lives. So why the fuck do we care if he makes a shit ton of money off of it? And I need to stop cursing so much because my kids are in there, but they might be able to hear me, so I'm gonna chill out. But you get what I'm saying? It's just kind of ridiculous that this is the state that the sport is in, and that's part of the reason why the sport sucks. The sport sucks mostly because these promoters want to make money, because they're grimy and they're greedy and they want to make as much money possible, and they don't care about the sport. It's just a whore that they're using to pimp out to make as much money as possible, and it is what it is. So I don't see why so many people like kiss Leonard Ellaby's ass and kiss Bob Arum's ass and kiss Eddie Hearn's ass when all of them are grimy and they're just trying to make money. They don't care about the fans either, to be honest. Deontay Wilder versus Robert Helenius fight is $75 on pay-per-view. It should not be $75 on pay-per-view. They should just put it on normal Fox and let everybody see it, especially doing right now where there's like recessions and people are having a hard time making money because some people can't afford it. Like me, I'm fortunate enough to be able to, where I can afford it, but a lot of people can't. And they don't really care that doing that, hiding behind the paywall, essentially makes it unaccessible to casual fans, which makes the sport smaller and which isn't promoting the sport. All they care about is making a quick buck. And Tyson Fury is out here wanting to fight Anthony Joshua when he should clearly be out here trying to fight Alexander Usyk because he's the best fight. He should clearly be out here going for undisputed, but he's not going to do that because he's trying to make money. And I get it. He should do that. As someone who's risking their lives in the ring, as someone who's in the business of boxing like Bob Arum, Eddie Hearn, Leonard Ellaby, all those other guys, those promoters and those managers, Bomac, all of them, they should be doing that because that's their job. If it was my job to make as much money as possible, I would do that. But as a boxing fan, why are you repeating that stuff? You're not making any money off of them. Do you just get off on seeing guys duck other guys and guys make millions and millions of dollars, even if it's worse for the sport? You care more about them making money than you care about the sport? It's like, why aren't you being selfish when they're obviously being selfish? They'll take years to negotiate a fight that you want to see just so that they can make much money as possible, not caring how it affects you. So why do you care so much to the point where you're going to help them duck? And like I said, there's a lot of fighters who are unlikable, like Teofimo Lopez. I can admit that after he won those belts against Vasily Lomachenko, and I like Teofimo Lopez, and I like Vasily Lomachenko, but I like Vasily Lomachenko more because he's less of an asshole than Teofimo Lopez. But I still want to see Teofimo Lopez fight the best guys. None of these in 140. I want to see him fight Josh Taylor, Regis Prograis, Gervonta Davis, all of them. Not because he's a great person, but because there's a chance he could beat some of those guys. So that's why I want to see it, because they're competitive. The only fight that I ever talked down was that Chris Eubank versus Conor Benn fight because I didn't see it as competitive. And the only reason why I did that is because I jumped out the window and I was all like, well, they're not the same size, because I didn't read into the details, and I didn't assume that Conor Ben had the negotiating power to put in a bunch of like clauses in there, like the rehydration clause and things. I didn't think that he had enough clout in the sport of boxing to do that, because I wasn't familiar with the politics of British boxing. But apparently he did, which evened it out some. And even if I do think that it is a one-sided fight, and my concerns for it was I didn't want him to end up like Kell Brook when he fought Triple G and he came back down to 147 and he was never the same fighter again, because it kind of ruined some of the fights he had later, like the fight he had with Errol and the fight that he had with Terrence Crawford. Because I was doing it for selfish reasons, but at least I was doing it in good faith, that I wanted to make better fights. Because I thought that him fighting someone like Speedy Rashidi Ellis, then going on to fighting someone like Jaron Ennis or Virgil Ortiz or Errol Spence Jr. or Terrence Crawford would be better and more competitive and more entertaining to me than seeing him in there at like 160 getting beat up by Chris Eubank Jr. But when but the British boxing fans, they checked me on that. They're like, we don't get a lot of the fights that we want. This if you go watch their dad's fights, I went back and I watched the fights from their dads. It was amazing. There's a lot of history behind it, and I don't blame them for wanting to fight, because even if it is one-sided or even if it is competitive because of all the rehydration clauses and stuff, at the end of the day, they don't get a lot of the fights that they want, just like we don't get a lot of fights that I want. So it would be insensitive of me to be selfish and say, yeah, I love seeing that British versus American matchup. I love seeing like Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder, or Andy Ruiz versus Anthony Joshua, or Brook versus Spence, because it's exciting for me and they're great fights and like the atmosphere of it, and I would love to see that. And I don't want freaking Chris Eubank to ruin Conor Ben and then ruin that for me later down the line. I was saying that because I was trying to, my son's in there banging on stuff, but I was saying that because it was my intention for them to make a good fight later, not that I just didn't want to see Conor Ben lose, or that I was trying to ruin Chris Eubank Jr. because I didn't like him. I would love to see Chris Eubank Jr. versus Charlo, either of the Charlos. I would love to see that. Or him versus Billy Joe Saunders in a rematch, or him versus even Canelo, even though I think Canelo would beat him. But that's all I'm saying. Like, I don't get it. Like even with the Keith Thurman thing, like, I like Errol Spence. He's one of my favorite fighters, but every time he says he's not going to fight Keith Thurman because Keith Thurman ducked him, you know what comes to my mind? I say, I don't give a fuck. I don't care that he ducked you. I want to see the fight. I'm a fan. Why do I care that you don't like Keith Thurman? What does that have to do with me? Because like, if I said that I didn't want to fight someone, or if I said that I didn't want to do something because I didn't like it, and I sent that to Errol Spence, you know what? He wouldn't even look at it because he doesn't fucking give a fuck about how I personally feel about anything. So why the fuck should I care about what he personally feels about anything? Like, I'm a huge fan of his. I like finding it inspiring that he came off that car accident and he actually improved. I was super happy because during the time when he got in that car accident, there was so much bad news going on. I was ecstatic when he ended up being okay. Ecstatic. Because there's so much bad news from celebrities dying, diseases, the economy, people around you, for whatever reason, getting sick and dying and things like this. So to see that somebody survived, like, I was on chemo myself and I survived from it. So of course I want to see another man beat their triumphs, even if it was his fault for drunk driving. I want to see him triumph. I want to see him come back better. It's inspiring. But when he says, well, I don't want to make a good fight for personal reasons just because I don't like the guy, I'm like, I don't give a fuck about that. Fight him anyway, because Keith Thurman's still a great fighter. Still a great fighter. Speaking of that, Mario Barrios, I'd love to see Conor Ben versus Mario Barrios. I kind of want him to go slow so that he can like reach a higher level so that we can make better fights. I would never say that he doesn't deserve a fight or that he's trash and all this other stuff if who he's fighting is going to be a competitive good fight. I would never say that. The same way that people talked about Shakur Stevenson before he was going to fight Oscar Valdez. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I knew that he was going to beat Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez knew that he was going to beat him. It was Oscar Valdez's fans who were trying to shit on that fight, saying like it wasn't a good fight. But that's the thing. Like, I hate these Bro, I hate duck ass fans. Stop ducking. Stop helping your favorite fighters duck. I don't give a fuck if it's your favorite fighter. You got a tattoo of the guy on your freaking arm or something and you're weird like that. Stop doing it. It's bad for the sport. Leave that to the promoters because they get paid. It doesn't benefit you at all. Unless you just like seeing your favorite fighter fight tomato cans, it doesn't benefit you at all. And that's all I gotta say about that. I'm out. Oh yeah, one other thing. Andrade should fight Charlo. Benavidez, Charlo should move up and fight Benavidez. Andrade should be able to fight Benavidez. Mugia should be in the mix too. They should all fight each other. And yes, old man Triple G should go ahead and fight Charlo, Andrade. If he's gonna move up to 168, fight Benavidez, or he should retire. Cause if people say that Charlo doesn't deserve to fight, or that Andrade doesn't deserve a fight with Charlo, then why did GGG and Charlo both fight Sergey Derevyanchenko? If Sergey Derevyanchenko deserves a shot, then so does Andrade against either of them, and so do any of them against Andrade. And Canelo should fight too. They should all just get in a big ass tournament. The best case scenario, which would never happen because it's just too much to ask for, way too much to ask for. So I know it'll never happen. But the best case scenario is that all those guys got in one big giant tournament and beat the hell out of each other for our entertainment. But it's never gonna happen. I know that. But that's the best case scenario. And we should be negotiating as fans to push closer to that instead of pushing away from something like that because we don't want to see our favorite fighters lose. There are way too many fighters, way too many with undefeated records, and they should go ahead and let that go. Go ahead and let it go, because it's ridiculous. And I'm not even going to put it all on the fighters. It's mostly these promoters, because if the promoters wanted them to fight, if the managers and promoters wanted them to fight, trust me, they would be fighting. Just like Mayweather doesn't want freaking Gervonta Davis to take on challenges, even though Gervonta Davis clearly wants to take on better challenges than Rolly Romero. He didn't want that in-house bullshit. And us as fans, we shouldn't be up here condoning that shit. Like, it's okay if you want to support the fight. It's okay if you want to watch it. It's okay if you like Rolly, if you like Davis. But don't sit around here and defend that like it wasn't clearly just a money grab. Because it was. Because I like Rolly, but he's not on the same level as a Gervonta Davis. There are far way better fights that could be made. And Gervonta Davis is not some young up-and-coming fighter. He's entering his prime, or he may very well be in his prime. It's time to start giving him some fights. Time to start giving him some fights. Stop all that fucking ducking. And you stop helping him duck. And that's all I gotta say. I'm out.